Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal! For you in all its magnificence.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Wolves Fancast. And I guess, sadly, the last Cupcaster for season, Stu.
Yeah, on hiatus until late August.
Yeah, I can't really remember if we do it for the Carabao, the Milk, the Worthington, but you know, it's disappointing in it for we haven't had at least a run past the fourth this year.
It's thing is, we doing this. We kind of been properly up for the cup again and getting the dreams back. And after that Carabao run at the start, and me deliberately not going to Forest because I was sick of it and poor performances and no one being bothered, and then beating Forest and then having the performance against Spurs. Okay, you're going to take the cup seriously. Then we had the last round against Sheffield United in the FA Cup. And I was believing again. It was getting to me. I was getting cup fever again. And I didn't want the antidote. I didn't want it to come. And now, after yesterday, it's like, oh, fuck it. Can I even be bothered next year? Is it now a case of this club is cursed and we're never going to see us in a final of anything ever in our lifetime?
Yeah, I had a friend text me at 5 o'clock yesterday saying, well, looks like I'm never going to Wembley then because he missed out on the semi-final a few years back. So, yeah. But you know what? You're right. I think it's a hope that kills you. Kind of sums up, I guess, how we were sort of feeling at, 2 o'clock on Saturday. Because you look at the starting lineups, basically as strong. I wouldn't say as strong. Yeah, actually, yeah. Sorry. I personally wouldn't have gone for midfield three of Neves, Moutinho, and Dendoncker against Norwich. But, Luke Kundal wasn't playing, for example. It was a full-on, full-strength side.
When I faithfully put that's a championship team you've ever saw one
Stu, you've actually introduced my newest segment. It's the That Didn't Age Well comment of the week from Stu Hall from the Fancast WhatsApp group, which was full strength fire emoji by you. Then you shared the Norwich lineup, said basically a championship side.
Yeah.
No excuses.
Which is exactly what I stick by. And to put a performance in like that against a team like them, there is no excuses. It was pitiful. But the whole Dendoncker thing, I mean, when it came out later that Trincao had COVID, that's why he wasn't there. This kind of, who knows? Let's just get the rant out of the way now. Just straight into it. After 1 week of the transfer window being closed, it's already looking a complete and utter fuck up of monumental proportions already. Because for him to come out,
Stu? I don't like to cut you off mid rant. What's worrying is that wasn't even a rant I thought you were going to go with today.
Oh no, there's many. When he came out, and it's pretty obvious what he was saying. Where we didn't have Trincao, so we had one winger, and we had no choice but to put Dendoncker and try and get him to do something. That's pretty much what he was saying after the game. Which, when you look through it, I thought, well, okay, we played with three midfielders against Brentford, and it worked well. And I said last week that I ain't really that fussed. If we play wing backs and we play them advanced, then we using the width from that way, then bring it on because they've both been playing well. But what was it? I kind of flip between how bad Dendoncker was to the job he was being asked to do. Fine, but when he's asked to do any other job of any other kind, he's equally as bad anyway. I'm not going to single him out tonight because Because there ain't many who come out with any kind of good points whatsoever. But yeah, it was all there for us. You look at that lineup, thinking, well, is it going to be Tuesday or Wednesday when we play in the 5th round, and it's midweek under the lights. Let's bring it all back. It'd be great. And then to put a performance in like that against them again for the second time in 3 months, it's just shit.
Yeah, I don't quite know what it was. I can't always quite put my finger on. The only way I could put it down was almost like post international break lag. That this is a team who we seem to have done quite well playing in quite quick succession and finding that rhythm. I saw as a Liverpool podcast saying the same about them. It's like, actually, however much Klopp complains about, having to play, Wednesday, Saturday for eternity, they find their rhythm. And I like looked back on that like December, January period where like we had a couple of clusters of games where we played in quick succession. You go, yeah, I can kind of see it. But before we kind of dive deep into the game, one thing I did want to mention, and it's a positive note, is Coady playing his 300th game for Wolves, which I do think very much in this day and age as well. Like to have someone and it not feel like a chore or anything. Like it didn't feel like it's been dragged out. Like it's not like Phil Jones has hit 10 years at Man United, and I like Phil Jones to be fair, but actually this is someone who for 4 seasons basically now, 4, 5 if you include this one, has pretty much played every game. It isn't like it's been eked out. This is someone who has been at the forefront of the shift at Wolves in the last half a decade now.
Yeah, I mean, for the post Nuno era, let's just say that, from when he came in, to miss one game through suspension in the Championship and one game through being in contact with someone with COVID, and that being it, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. 5 years worth. You don't get, and like you said, it's not been a chore. He's not like, oh, we haven't got a choice. Well, kind of haven't got a choice, but he's there on merit still.
Yeah,
and it's a testament to him that it crept up on me. I was kind of, what, already 300 games?
I had to do the maths.
Yeah. But yeah, and for the club to do that as well for audio listeners, a picture of the lower Steve ball with Coady 300 spelled out in the seats, which obviously I was above that, so I didn't see that until this morning. But yeah, really, really nice touch for an excellent captain and a really good guy. Yeah,
exactly. And it was a shame that that was borderline the highlight of the afternoon. In terms of what was kind of going on, I guess, on the pitch, because it crap, wasn't it? I mean, we'll talk first half first because it makes linear sense. The Dendoncker playing in this like weird hybrid role, where it was again, and I appreciate Norwich's form has picked up a bit, and ironically, it sort of started, I think, the week before they played Wolves,
of course,
previously. So I was like, I assumed we'd win because we're a better team, and I thought Norwich would at least push us a little bit when you look at their team as well, but just nothing really clicked, did it? First half in particular.
No, and I think I spent the first 15 minutes trying to understand what Dendoncker was supposed to be doing. Because at times he looked like he was a 10, and then he was on the right wing. You think, well, he's not going to be doing anything there, is he? And then he was up front for a bit, and it was all very odd. And like we go back to that game in December, the snow day, and it was like, it was almost carbon copy how annoyingly bad it was. Because you got, like you said earlier, you can't really put your finger on what it actually was that made it so bad. It was just a kind of a combination of a lot of different things. And like the passing was off, all these weird like chipped long balls over the top for people to run onto when the fastest player that we've ever had has been got rid of. And we never did that when he was here. it was just strange. And when it clearly wasn't working, and they obviously got a bollocking at the end of at half time, which we'll come on to in a bit. But I think we've moaned on here about cup atmosphere anyway. But you can't blame people for not being up for anything when they're watching that in front of them.
Yeah.
And no amount of fire or loud music or anything, or 300 banners or whatever, is going to get people off their seats. Well, get them singing or chanting anything. And when you're watching dull dirge in front of you, and having the Norwich fans, or the few that turned up who weren't bludgeoned to death, having them in the quadrant never helps atmosphere wise, because when they're next to the South Bank, it's always a bit more on edge. And fair play to them, it's an away day. They did away day things, singing their one song over and over again. But they're still trying to get something going. But normal people in the Steve Ball weren't there. Like, they were probably in the South Bank as a one-off. So you were never going to get the atmosphere from that point of view. North Bank, it's the North Bank, and it's deadly silent at the best of times. So for something to happen, it would have been have to happen on the pitch early, or a sending off, or some controversy, which nothing happened at all.
No, I mean, you bring up an interesting point around, I guess, sort of fans driving performance. And I think, considering we played a year and a half behind closed doors, I do find it kind of interesting how we kind of loop back to, and I think we've got a question for Twitter Corner around sort of, I can't quite remember off the top of my head about sort of day outers and stuff like that. But for a cup game, this was a very boring fixture. Like, it's against someone in the same division of us, not an exciting or interesting opposition. I was going to say, no offense, Norwich, it's fact in it. It's not gonna appeal to a lot of people. Whereas, even if we'd have had a championship team, I think, Wolves would have probably had to have come out swinging a bit more. So I can sort of see why, fans might not just quite fancy it. We've had a little break from football as well, so everyone kind of finds their rhythm again. But yeah, but from minute one, hell, I'll kind of not quite go tin hat, but I think even having the Coady things, like, almost slightly like, oh, it's just nice. It's just nice, isn't it? It's just we're here for football now. That's nice. Oh, well done. Now, if you want to buy into that, great. I'm of the belief anyway that these players, that they are professionals. They don't hugely care about what's happening on around them. They've got a job to do at the moment, and that job is to win a fucking football match. Whether Trevor is in L1 or S4, and that means he's not going to sing Bruno Lage's Barmy Army. I don't think it impacts as much as we think. However, I think it impacts the fans more if the players aren't quite showing.
Yeah,
and but I guess it's chicken and egg from literally just what I've said. But if the team aren't playing well, then you're not going to have happy fans.
No,
simple, isn't it?
There's that interesting point that Tim Spears said as well, that makes perfect sense to me, that because Kidderminster lost there, we were all deflated from the kickoff.
Yeah.
So
and like it sounds really silly, but I think you do sometimes get it with, I guess, the cup weekends, that a lot of people did get wrapped into that kiddie game, didn't they?
That was the first time that all the COVID propaganda had been taken off the screens in the Steve Bull Upper. I don't know what it's been like in the rest of the stadium. I presume it was the same, where you had get boosted now and wear a mask and blah blah blah. Yesterday was the first time that actually shown something other than that on there. So you had loads of people in the concourse watching that game. When I lasted till, I think there was 2 minutes of extra time left before I went to get into my seat. But there was a lot of people who didn't know, who stayed downstairs and was watching it. So maybe however mental it sounded at the time to read that tweet, maybe it did have some kind of effect, that it did have. Like, if Kidderminster had beat West Ham, then there'd be the possibility of going to Kiddie and everyone being like, oh yeah, cup fever and all that. It might have had I'm not saying it's probably complete bollocks, but it might have had a slight impact on people's mindset that, oh, that's a bit sad. Who knows? Maybe. The fact that we're even thinking of reasons why says how
I
bad the
think
game was.
it almost feels like we just don't want to talk about the game in a way. But I was going to say what it feels like is, say, I guess you do get this in cup games, and as particularly as I said, this being a sort of unattractive fixture. You know, we're all sort of focusing on the other ones. You know, time of recording, I think Bournemouth would have just beaten Bournemouth. You had Middlesbrough Friday night, and there's lots of things to kind of talk about, which is great. And you're almost focusing on other neutral games much more than, frankly, I would as, you know, if this was going to be a Saturday 3:00 kickoff, which it inevitably would be, I probably wouldn't be focusing on the 12 o'clock game as much as you would have done Kidderminster for all the obvious reasons. But yeah, it was a bit of a null and void first half. You know, notable stuff. You've had John Ruddy with a kind of coming out for a save. And also Norwich's goal. I guess we can't sort of, you know, not talk about it because it was the only major thing that happened. First of all, do you think it was a free kick?
No, nowhere near. No, it was. I mean, at this point, we are going to have to just start calling him something else, aren't we? Because David Coote is exactly what you'd think I'm going to say about him. Because every single time we have him, he's awful. Every time, without fail. Him and John Moss, not fit for purpose. Just shit. I mean, the two main ones where he pulled Fabio up for. I mean, Fabio Silva out muscling someone's humiliating anyway, but he did it legally and fine. There was nothing wrong with them challenges that he and to blow up for a foul against him. It was piss poor, and as soon as you saw him swanning out in his little way that he does, you knew it was going to be one of them days. But it was never a free kick in a million years. No way.
Yeah, I mean, it was a. When I saw it and I watched it back, I thought it's soft. It is soft at best. I can kind of see why, just because he puts his hand on him. But it's like, really, thing that annoyed me, and it's really pedantic. But the free kick wasn't really taken anywhere near where the foul was. Now, whether that you could argue, well, that gave them the extra, you know, the extra angle to whipping the ball, or whatever. But it was a interesting kind of set piece goal. I kind of thought because, you know, it was a proper like training ground one which they'd worked on in terms of just trying to like flick the header on and, you know, properly like scooped over everyone. Really didn't really have a chance. But you know, considering Wolves' abilities from defending set pieces this season, not quite sure how I feel about that one.
No, it's took me a few watches to realise what actually happened.
Yeah.
At first I thought, what is he doing? Why is he not moved? And then you think, well, it's in the absolute top corner. He's got no chance. It's not. People blaming Ruddy. I mean, come on.
No, I wouldn't go as far as blaming Ruddy for it.
And so it wouldn't have happened. We saw, but he wouldn't have come for that anyway. So he would have done.
No,
it's exactly. It's one of them all. And it was Out Nuri who left him. He was Out Nuri's man, and he's ran off him. Fair, but he's ran towards the corner. He's run towards the kicker. Where you think, well, do you follow the man? Which is that how we mark? It's kind of a mixture between both, ain't? So, do you follow the man and leave your space unattended when he's going away from goal? I don't know the answer to it. I mean, with the amount of bodies there, I would have said yes, follow and man mark, but that's not how we've been doing things. So, it's just one of them weird freak goals that's he could have gone anywhere. He could have been one of them where he's nodded it back with the back of his head to put it back in to get into play.
I think that's why he makes the run. I think the set play is for him to flick it back almost across goal to give it that extra bit of spin and to make sure it almost gets that extra loop to get to the far post. The fact that it ends up in the back of the net is a massive bonus, but it just causes that extra bit of chaos, gets that man free. You're completely right. I can see why he doesn't. Why Norwich doesn't follow him, because say the guy's running away from goal. In theory, like he's just opening up a bit of space for something to happen. However, if you don't follow him, you need to make sure that you actually win that ball. And I mean, I'm probably more on the lines of zonal than man marking and stuff like that. But it's players who score goals rather than the space.
Yeah.
And actually, I just think it was actually quite a savvy set piece move from Norwich in the end. A couple of players I wanted to sort of chat about, kind of especially going into the second half. One was Fabio Silva. We mentioned, he was at the end of a couple of, I guess. No, I usually say things like questionable. For one on like the halfway line, where like he rolled him, I don't understand. You even saw
right in front of me.
Go. You did use your shoulder. It's like, well, yeah, I thought you were allowed to use your shoulder, so long as you're not using your hands. Like he's literally just sort of just moved him around to one side and span off him. Yeah. I don't get it.
The bloke's never played the game in his life, clear as day. The amount of stuff that happens all the time, not just for us. If you're watching referee any game, he gives all these shitty little soft fouls all the time, like he doesn't understand football.
Yeah. I mean, when you compare it to, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, I think it was against Burnley, where we had that ref. It was his first time in Premier League. And he just let things play. If it needed to be called back, he was calm and he was patient, but he let the game flow against two quite industrious teams. And when you see that happen on the halfway line, I just couldn't see it. What reasons are there? But what do you think of Silva overall? Because I've seen a few bits and bobs online, but you always do with him. So what was your take on Saturday?
I thought he was fine. When we got back in the car and put WM on, the first three callers were slagging him off. I thought, oh, here we go. Then this is now all you idiots have been showing up for slagging Semedo off, and how stupid you were with that. You've got to find another scapegoat now, and it's inevitably going to be Fabio because of the money and whatever. What did he do wrong? For the most part, I thought he held the ball up pretty well. His touch was all right. He didn't have any service at all. What's the bloke supposed to do in that situation? Yeah. When Raul came on later on, he didn't have no service. He did less. He did less, maybe the same effective wise, but without the ball, what you supposed to do? You're gonna. I mean, at times when he came on, I know we're skipping around the timeline a bit, but he was in his own half getting the ball.
Yeah.
And you think, well, no, we've got three midfielders on the pitch. And
yeah.
What are you? Go away, go up there. But he was being so isolated and so starved of the ball that he was dropping back like Harry Kane was earlier in the season under Nuno for the Spurs. And for Fabio, for a kid like that, still for his age, learning his trade against a team like that, being pushed all over the place, getting nothing off the ref whatsoever. And when he does put himself about, gets penalised for doing nothing wrong. I have no clue where all this hate's come from at all. Completely baffled by it.
I think we said before, you remove the price tag from him, and I don't think anyone questions how he's doing developmentally, even last season. And I'll admit, I think I sort of on the record saying I think he was a good player for us last season. He just needs games and he needs minutes. On Saturday, I don't think he did amazing. No one did. But he wasn't awful. But he's someone who relies on needing players near him. Like how he does when, we'll talk Podence in a sec. If Podence is on form and playing well and playing near him, getting him involved, it's great. And I think the fact that, I don't want to dig out players as much as I can help it, but then Donker's in theory that key man, because if he ain't connecting up with Silva that bit higher a pitch, whether it's as a midfielder as a right winger, then we're basically playing with 10 men because he needs the support. He needs players around him. And part of it is because he is still young and he's still developing and he's not. It's going to sound harsh when I say it, but he's not quite good enough. in terms of like,
Yeah.
you can't expect him to do certain things at this point in the same way you could sort of get away with it with a peak Jimenez. But say when you see some of the slander online, it's like, come on, have a look at how he's played the last few games this season, and how he's pushed on leaps and bounds, and even on Saturday, say didn't perform any worse than anyone else. And if the issue is he didn't score, well, it's like, well, yeah, because he didn't really have any chances. Like if he just fluffed his lines 4 times or couldn't have got in the box, then it'd be a different story. But yeah, how about Podence? Because I think it sort of feels at the moment that if Podence plays well, Wolves play well. But
Yeah.
I thought he played well on Saturday, or better than most, but he sort of still wasn't everything clicking for him. Do you think, again, the late formation switch didn't help him, or what?
He never plays one in the middle, does he? Whenever we've tried this before, and like people say, he's got all the attributes to be a 10, which he has. He has got the attributes, but he doesn't seem to be able to do it. He seems to, when he's drifting in from wide, that's what his game is. And trying him up, I mean, obviously, again, not his fault. He just seemed offy. It's a typical winger, really. It's like one game on, one game off. That's what you kind of expect from him. But I don't know, that it didn't seem to click, did he? There was all over the pitch. It just didn't seem to click, and you do wonder how late this change was. If Trincao had tested positive on the morning of, I haven't seen that. I don't know when he was, because it just looked disjointed and all like they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. So yeah, I think he's a victim of that. Him and Dendoncker are a victim of the situation more than anything else.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think in sort of different ways. I mean, directly Dendoncker, just because he was asked to do something and not in his capability to do it, or in his form or whatever at the moment. And then opponents just seem to not be able to bounce off that. And, he's been one of my favourite players the last 3 months to watch. And you get bits of it on Saturday, but then you get the other side where he goes down easily, and you've got the simulation, and no, he's better than that. But we talk about him starting Dendoncker instead of Trincao, who was out. Do you think that was in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing? Do you think, as I suggested they should on the good Forza football app, that Wolves could have started Chiquinho as a bit of a different option, who I thought showed a bit when he came on?
Well, the cross that he put on was the best cross of the season from anyone.
Yeah,
and let's get it out of the way. Yes, Adama Traore has got 1 assist after 25 minutes today. And again, that is the best cross he's put over all season. It's not because they've got people in the box. It's because all his crosses inevitably end up out for a goal kick or a throw-in.
I was going to say, I did watch it, and there was a great point where he stopped, and he's one-on-one with the left back, and I think it must be like one of the centre midfielders sort of came to cover the run inside, and it's like, have you watched any Adama Traore? Like, he is not about to just try and drive into the box on his weaker foot. There's only one place he's going, and to be fair, it's a bit fantastic ball in and well finished by was it Gavi? Yeah. But Chiquinho, I thought lively player. I was really happy with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I was fully behind why he didn't start him, because new player, kid can barely. I mean, fair fucks to him, putting himself out there for an English media interview without being able to put even I can't tonight put a sentence together. No, even Neves didn't do that when he came here, and so he's got something about him to just do that. But to start him in a game like that against what he's still Premier League opposition, it made sense to come off the bench for his first game, just as a sort of slowly kind of thing. And he has said, Bruno said himself, didn't he, that he's for the future, but he will help us now. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he came on and he wasn't scared. he was right at them straight away. So I mean, I wouldn't be averse to playing him against Arsenal now on Thursday, because just because if we're in this situation again, which you imagine we would be, if it was the day of the game, it's going to be less than 5 days. So Trincao will still be isolating. You'd imagine. We can't do this again. It failed massively, but again,
Not
like we
unless
said,
we can't try something completely different, like Jimenez and Silva up front, or something. But it would
yeah.
need to be something very, very different game plan.
Because I mean, it worked at Brentford, but then Duncan was playing a completely different game against Brentford than he was yesterday. And do you go back to that against Arsenal? Well, this is for the previous show anyway, but yeah, I think it made sense to me for him to start on the bench for this game anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, as Lars said, and you've highlighted as well. I think it's shown that he is one for the future, but I can see why they've snapped him up now, rather than gambling in the summer. He's definitely going to be an extra body in terms of we need wingers. So, if he's able to give us 15 minutes as a relief, I think that's more than well deserved as a good idea. I mean, in terms of sort of who did well, who we weren't sure of. Again, we've gone via the Forza Football app where you can do your player ratings as well as your predicted lineups and everything else you can do on, sort of a football scores app in terms of live updates. Player ratings, man of the match. Stu, who are you sort of thinking? Because it was a little bit of a who didn't play as bad to a degree.
Well, for me, I mean, I think it's slanderous having Semedo as a 6.5 because he was man of the match for me by an absolute mile. I just thought he at least he looked like he wanted it, and he was trying more than anyone else. Neves was completely off it. They looked like they'd had a week off, which is exactly what they had. Yeah. I thought Ruddy, a couple of saves that he made, superb. Didn't do anything wrong, which is nice. Other than that little dribble that he nearly got caught on, but again, Jose Sar's done one of them as well. So can't mind him for that. He got away with it, but it for the first time in a while. It's picking from a bad bunch, really. And I'll go with Semedo just because that was the one after about 70 minutes who was in my head thinking he's the only one here who deserves man of the match at all.
Yeah, I can see that. I thought I did think sort of Semedo had a decent game. To be fair, I think it's always difficult because we did really impose ourselves enough on anything for anything. I think sort of my highlight would potentially could have been Semedo, but I thought the back three and Ruddy all did well. Let's say apart from the goal, which was a bit. I thought Coady had a really good game again.
Yeah.
He had obviously the individual highlight at the start, but it didn't impact him at all.
No, I think all of them. I mean, Toti Gomez again, he's just there.
Yeah,
he's just slotted perfectly, and you probably will bring Sace back in because I mean he did try a couple of through balls for the first time really, and one landed, one didn't. But he wasn't fazed by the fact that he didn't wanting the ball, which for a central defender is it's still quite alien, especially in this side. Other than Kilman, who was again just very Kilman about things. No fuss, just gets on with it. Yeah, none of the back foot. Even Ait-Nouri, I thought Ait-Nouri.
it was decent enough game,
a steady game, and the problems were in central midfield, and where we should have been overwhelming them, we were overwhelmed with more men.
Yeah, so it did feel like they had a plan going in for most of this week, and it got sort of disrupted via Trincao being absent. Part of me just sort of works like, well, it's only taking Trincao to fold your plan in half. But at the same time, I completely get it because we don't have a big enough squad for literally someone to say, oh, you're doing what he was supposed to be doing this week. And, we don't quite have that. But it's the cup. It happens. It's after an international break. It was an off. Hopefully, anyway, just a bad day at the office. Would you say?
Yeah, and the overreaction on Twitter was kind of, it was nice in a way because we're not used to losing anymore.
Yeah.
And so when we do, it's like nuclear Chernobyl walls meltdown returns.
I was going to say, I think it was probably about. What do you rank out as 5 out of 5 on a meltdown scale today? Well, yesterday even. About
Well,
2 or
there was
3.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3. It wasn't like transfer window like 5.
No.
Yeah, it was around about middling. I think just because it was the cup anyway, and if that would have been a league game against them, I think it would
might
have
be
been a
different
lot
story.
worse. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, completely agree. Well, we're going to chat a little bit more about the FA Cup and about the very fun fixture Februaries we've got coming up right after this short ad break. Hi, it's Richard from Wolves Fancast here. Just interrupting today's show before we get back to some questionable opinions and opinionated questions to talk to you a little bit about our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media. They are a design agency that put you and your business first, from web design, logo and branding design, and marketing. If you have any marketing needs, get in touch with them to find out how they can help you get it right. They are over at pixelyetimedia.com. Now let's get back to a show where we can give you some really forced wordplay, niche cultural references, and maybe even a bit of football talk. Hello and welcome back. Me and Stu, we are the Cupcast boys, and we are very proud of, supporting Wolves in cup competitions. So I'm asking Stu for you to do me a favour here and sort of take off the rose-tinted spectacles and answer me this question. Is Wolves being out of the FA Cup a blessing in disguise or a missed opportunity for us this season?
Massive missed opportunity. Massively. It's not like we're going to be in fixture chaos because the next games, the next round would have been midweek anyway. And then you're looking all the way down to the Leeds game on the 19th of March, which is when the quarterfinals would have been. Just everyone said, "Oh, look! After what happened at Man United have gone. Arsenal have gone already. Leicester again today, and it's West Ham having that wobble as well. And you think, oh, they're gettable, and it felt like it was opening up, and yet again, it's been slammed shut in our faces, and I was properly pissed off. I had to. I got a kebab and a little sit down. I had to have a bath to calm down. I was so annoyed. Just for that reason, because it was there for the taking. Not saying that if we got Man City or Liverpool, as would have transpired today, you get past one of them, maybe getting past both is tough. But like we talked about last week, on our day we can beat anyone anyway, and with a bit of luck, it was there for us, and it's been fucked up again for another year.
Yeah, I was trying to think of arguments for the opposition on this one, and that wasn't fun. So the only ones I could think of is potential extra fixtures with a very small squad. And I thought, well, yes, but there is essentially a price to pay for being better, which is you play more games. And I think every footballer would take that compromise, to be honest. I think the other one I had was about, we have got a small squad. However, judging by the fact that, Luke Cundle, who is very much around the first team at the moment, isn't really getting any games in the first team, but we're then not playing him in an additional competition that we're in. So, well, it doesn't really kind of offer that opportunity anyway. The only person who gets a game who's different is John Ruddy. That's the only person who's getting anything extra. I know, like, I can't just like for me, like winning momentum builds momentum, and
Yeah.
actually, you know what? If we'd have won this, it's another game that we've won in the in 2022, and so you look at the teams who are in it, and you can't always judge it, but the fact for the likes of Man United, so thankfully we don't have to play them again, and Arsenal are out already. You know, you are left with Spurs, you're left with Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea, but there's potential for some of those to play each other, and you can't go, well, I can start plotting a map here, and you. It sounds really stupid, but you take out those teams and you go, well, we're the best team in it. We're the best team left,
Yeah.
and then
Exactly.
sort of turn out that. Yeah, I will put out a question, sort of saying if people think it could be a blessing in disguise because it allows us to focus on the league and all of that, but it'll bring us nicely on to my next thing about the fixtures we've got coming up, because I was very optimistic about 2 weeks after Brentford, and we're all riding high on the fact that we were, you know, a couple of points away from top 4 or whatever. And then you look at the February fixtures and you go, actually, if we do have a significant drop off in the next 2 months, a cup could be really handy just to keep the momentum of our season ticking over. And,
Yeah.
you know, league petitions are temporary, hardware is forever.
Exactly.
You can't put anything on a trophy. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, that you'll always have that. But yeah, I will put something out on social media sort of saying if anyone's sort of not happy that we're out of the cup, but feels that there's you know, it could be a blessing for us in the league or something like that, because I'm still struggling. I think there's still, you know, whether you're competing in the league for a decent finish or not, being in a cup's always good. You know, you look at any half decent. Usually, it's continental manager. Like, and Mourinho was big for it. His first time out at Chelsea was like, first trophy he'd always want to win is the League Cup, because it's just like getting something in early doors, creating that victory mentality. And you know, that's why when you see sort of teams just, you know, phone it in, which doesn't happen as much anymore. I must say, like, to the degree that it was back 15 years ago, it was silly.
I'd say even 5 years ago, like pre-Pep. I think even then it was a bit of a, oh well, it was an annoyance more than anything else. But like what we mentioned, like what I said about how far away the other rounds are, it would have been extra games, but we would have had players back.
Yeah.
And you're looking at,
we'd have had opportunity to give fit, you know, Liverpool today they gave half an hour to Harvey Elliott.
Yeah, I mean, when we would have had Neto out for the majority of the season anyway, and then he comes back and he's going to need minutes. He ain't going to get minutes playing in the Premier League, is he? So he's off the 10 minutes off the bench here and there and playing the under-23s. It's annoying.
Yeah. So that's going to end our FA Cup ranting, and move us on to seeing how positive and or negative we are about the February fixtures. So is it FINE or is it FYNE for any community fans out there? Just so you can differentiate which one's good and which one's bad. So my sort of theory of this is that we cancel out the Norwich game now. It's in the cup, doesn't focus on the league. It is stacked February for. So we've got Arsenal on the 10th, Spurs on the 4th, and West Ham on the 27th. So it is a big run against decent sides. How are you feeling about it at the moment? Kind of, you know, whether you're taking the loss against Norwich or not, where's your head at with those sort of, with this big 5-game running?
It comes back to the thing of we always turn it on against good sides normally, but you look at the squad and where a complete shambles it is now, and is it going to last? Is it going to be able to cope with 5 games in a month? In 3 and a bit weeks now? it's a tough ask. And at 15 possible points, what would you take from that? I mean, three draws and a win. I'll be happy with that now.
Well, I was going to say, like, I was just trying to work out what I'd put us down for, and I think pessimistically, I'd say 5. Realistically, it's potentially 6. You know, draws against Arsenal, win against Leicester, or West Ham, and then draw against the other one, and I think probably lose to someone like Spurs.
Yeah,
that might still sort of be enough because we've got that bit of a buffer between mid-table and where we are currently. But you say that is a tricky fixture sort of congestion for us to navigate. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Bruno does in terms of approaching each individual game as well, because there's some scores to settle in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like last season where we were nailed on to be beaten by these teams, and it'd be the usual Wolves way to lose against Leicester and then beat Spurs or whatever, or beat West Ham in their run. But yeah, there's no one there. I mean, the Spurs games earlier in the season where we should have beaten them in the league, and then the League Cup was what it was. So you got that, and the whole trial raid and Nuno stuff, and there's a bit of needle there, like you said. Arsenal's just a shambles, ain't they? So, and then Leicester's always a bit fiery for whatever reason. And again, we should have beaten them earlier in the season. So you're right. There's history in these games automatically. So would I be happy? I mean, if we want to be in and around the kind of the hunt for Europe, we need to be getting more than 6. But I don't think we're capable of doing it. Not with the squad that we've got. Unless by some miracle everyone says fit, and we don't have to like chop and change into the kind of mess that we had yesterday. Then maybe you could put in another couple of points in there and take it to 8 out of 15. Superb. But realistically, I'd expect 6 and be happy with that, personally.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go for 6 and think that, no, you know what? I'm going to be positive and go 7. I've decided. Because I think we'll do something really silly, like we'll beat Spurs both games, and then we'll nick a point off Leicester. It's like that, where like it. I feel like it'll be one of those where like you can manipulate it in different ways. Let's say so. I might say, oh well, Wolves haven't won in 3, but we're unbeaten or whatever, and, things like that. Or we've won 3 out of 4, depending on like how the games are sandwiched and things like that. I think we'll be fine. Just I know. I reckon if you view it through the prism of yesterday, then I think it's going to be awful. But I also think that Bruno's going to stick a rocket up them. Yeah. Just because I know we've spoken about it before. I do love that man's post-match pressers. He has not got a filter.
No, it's nice to see as well, rather than having 4 years of solutions and we go again and all that stuff. And he just says it like it is, and he couldn't give 2 shits. It's brilliant.
Yeah, but like it's nice because it's still eloquent in how he's delivered it and all of that, but it gives you that extra little bit of insight where it's like, not happy with the wingers. That's what the issue is. So the blatant openness, frankness that comes with it. I'm assuming the place respond to it quite nicely because I'm not sure how I would feel sort of otherwise, to be honest. But I feel like it's quite hard. And I was going to say, congrats on Bruno being named Manager of the Month. I'm hoping that we've got the curse out because we're playing a league opposition, even though it was in the cup. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me on the exact science or magic. but that's what I'm thinking. So we should be fine for Arsenal.
Well, you see, he actually mentioned it. He said, "I don't believe in curses." So I thought he meant like in terms of us being cursed about never getting to a cup final ever again. But thinking about it now, it's more than likely going to be about the manager of the month curse.
Yeah, I think so too. Shall we have some questions from Twitter Corner, Stu?
Bring him on.
Right. So the first one is from, and I'm pretty sure this guy sent in 2 questions. It might be him or somebody else. Lot of reading involved in this one, so I'm gonna have to bring it up on my phone. But he sent a screenshot of a page from Glenn Hoddle's autobiography. Basically sort of said, do you think this could happen to Bruno in respect to moving the team forward? Will there be a major overhaul in the summer? I'm worried that many key players will leave and we'll try to replace them on the cheap. We should be building around them. So I'll read the team. I'll read sort of a passage from the book really briefly, but essentially it's around his relationship with Joe Lewis, Daniel Levy, and his sort of overall frustration with basically working at Tottenham. And essentially the point is, it mentions a Wolves player in this, is that we had a tired and frayed squad. We need more energy in midfield, given that Darren Anderton and Tim Shield were getting on, but the lack of funds forced me into compromises like signing Jamie Madden upon a free from Liverpool. It wasn't the behaviour of a club looking to challenge the elite. Most of our best players were approaching retirement. I love Jamie, but his contract had been incentivised because of his knee problems. And I also knew that we couldn't expect our main strikers, Teddy Sheringham and Les Ferdinand, to last forever. I kind of get where the guy's coming from in terms of, say, sort of doing it on the cheap. Wolves do it the other way round in terms of the ages of players, I think, in that, it makes more sense, but, we won't be looking to replace João Moutinho with, I'm assuming, another 34-year-old. Oh, well, we'll have him for 2 years. For example, I'd be surprised if we'll sign Juan Mata to replace João Moutinho.
Yeah.
I'd love Juan Mata at my football club.
Yeah.
Don't know where he'd play, how he'd play, but
a 31, 32-year-old, which is what he was when we signed him in the first place, I could see that happening. But no, we ain't going to be signing anyone in their mid-30s. But it's a good point, because, look at how he's already talked already over and over again, how frustrated he is. And he's openly, publicly said what he wants, and he's never been given it. There's only so much you can take when that kind of stuff happens to you. And Traore's gone, which he blatantly didn't want to happen, but obviously above everyone's out of everyone's hands other than his own, which his choice. He wanted to leave, fine. But the question is going to be about Neves again, and if he's got 2 years left on his deal in the summer, you'd hope, seeing how settled he is, and that brilliant video of his son singing the Neves song to him.
That was wonderfully sweet, wasn't it?
He kind of makes you think that he's perfectly happy here. And he's still ridiculously young. So if he signs a new deal, that's more of a statement of intent for me. If he doesn't, then you got to think, okay, this is not going to what we were told, what we were sold, and the house of cards is going to come crumbling down. And what do you do in that situation? Are we going to spend money in the summer again? Probably not. And you can just cut and paste what we've said in the last 2 transfer windows for the summer. You can see it already. Here there's been talking, and there's no need for it whatsoever this time. There's no excuses. But in his situation, what does he do? If he gets us into contention, will he get a better offer? Will he want to take that when he's done things with one hand tied behind his back all season here? Who knows?
Yeah,
but
I think
he's got a right to be pissed off if it comes to that, though.
yeah, and in a way, I can sort of get it from Bruno's point of view. I also think it looks very good on his CV as well because one of the things that I really rate about Bruno and Nuno as well, actually, is the fact that they improve players. It's not just a case of, well, we need to just buy in a new player to be better. And however much Bruno is sort of saying, look, we need reinforcements here, he's getting a tune out of a hell of a lot of players who, frankly, a lot of us thought had hit their ceiling at Wolves.
Yeah.
And, again, that'll speak to a lot of clubs that go, well, hang on, if we can match your ability to improve players whilst investing in you to a right and find that right balance, then I think a lot of people will take it. Will be interested in that. What have we got next? Yes. So Answer asks 2 questions. I knew somebody did. With cut price tickets and a lot of occasional fans / families in yesterday, the atmosphere was quiet. ... Is this a glimpse of to a future if long-term fans continue to be priced out? Branded clappers incoming in the club shop like Leicester. Stu, are young? So I think my question is: are young people ruining football? I don't quite know what the question is within it. Now I've sort of said it out loud. Is the future of football just very sanitized and gentrified?
Well, I've said this over and over again. This season has been awful everywhere other than Leeds. Everywhere, every single stadium this season, Molyneux included, has been sterile and awful. It's been like, I don't know. It's obviously got more to do with what happened in the 15 months beforehand, before we all came back, and maybe people are scared of sort of singing it because they might catch it, or so it might be a factor. But it's not just a Wolves problem; it is systematic in the entire league. And Leeds not having that chance the last season to be back, they've got it now, and they're making up for it because they were superb at Ellen Road. And obviously, I don't like Leeds anyway. Who does apart from them? But fair play to them, credit where it's due. They were incredible. Singing this, whatever that silly song was with the scarves and everything, it made an impact, and they won the game. So Molyneux has been bad this season. It's been like it used to be in the Championship when we were just pissing about in mid-table, kind of with a wing and a prayer of the playoffs, where it was the bar be raised against the top teams in the league, whereas for the rest of the time it was just very meh. Yesterday, I think was kind of a storm of everything coming together and it being particularly bad. But it is worrying when people who can't be asked to turn up, sing to Older Watties, get replaced with people who turn up again. Obviously, not everyone can afford to go all the time. You were priced out yourself.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, then you replace it with people who've got more money who don't necessarily want to sing, which is, again, their prerogative, of course. It's going to have an effect eventually, and it'll trickle down, and eventually it will be silent, and that's what it will be. But I think for now, if you're talking the next 5 years, I don't see it happening in that time period. But if they hike their prices up again in the summer, which we all expect them to do, especially if we get European football, that you're going to be talking 100 quid on top of what it was last summer. And it's already, it was 85 quid more expensive in the Steve Ball for people who got new tickets rather than people who renewed. I'm fully expecting to pay that price in the summer, regardless. So that'll be 729 quid in the Steve Ball for 19 games.
Yeah.
That's taking the piss. So you ain't going to get them, the Steve Ball Ultras who've developed over the last few years. A lot of them are so-called down-to-earth working class blokes, but you know what I mean. They ain't going to be there if they put prices up that much again. So who's going to replace them? The people who are there for cup games who don't sing. So they've got to. it's worrying, and they've got to be very careful about what they're doing.
Yeah. I think it must be a really difficult task for a football club to find that balance of, they're capped, aren't they? They're capped about how many people they can have. They can't have, they want to promote to families and to young people because, that, we can't sort of say, oh, well, we've got day trippers coming in from all over the place. But it's like, well, yeah, because actually, for, kids who haven't been able to kind of, I had a season ticket when I was 10 or something. But actually, if you don't get that opportunity, then you kind of potentially have missed out on that sort of potential pathway if you're not careful in getting in early. So I think it is tough from the club's perspective because they've got this weird demand that could fluctuate depending on what happens year after year. I mean, in terms of sort of the atmosphere side of things, I think it grows with time though, and with tradition. And yeah, yes, they weren't great for it because everyone does get a little bit muddled up and stuff like that. Again, it's not a good game. It doesn't matter. You can say, oh, well, there's people who aren't usually here. It's not like it's the huge majority of people who've never gone to a Wolves game before, have never gone to a football match, who don't know. It's like going to Rocky Horror Picture Show, the theatre, where you have to do certain things, but you learn it. It's not, they don't sort of say at the start that when, you shout a certain thing when, someone comes up on stage. It's like the only play that happens with. I've really gone for a really niche analogy here. I appreciate it. I've started, I'll finish. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, actually, it can still take time to, fucking learn chants. Just because you might have seen it on YouTube, you might not be comfortable doing it. You might not feel comfortable, banging the chair and cheering the team on. That does, I genuinely think that just takes time. You can't, we all can't all just rock up on day one going, well, I know exactly what I'd be doing. If I went, if me and you did our, long American road trip and watched some NFL games, Stu, I think we'd probably spend half the time like taking it in rather than, joining in whatever weird chants they have over there.
JETS, Jets.
That is such an appalling chant. That is genuinely appalling. But I'm going to move on to the next question, which I'm pretty sure is by the same guy. It is. Again, another interesting theory by Answer is Bruno seemed well pissed off in post-match interviews, making not so veiled remarks about doing the best with the squad size he has. Is he experiencing what Bruno did that may be contributing to him losing his mojo / boring tactics last season?
I think his own issues, and them issues followed him to Spurs, and hopefully he stays away for a bit and finds himself again. But I think having a small squad, which is what he asked for, is the problem. But he was visibly pissed off, and I've mentioned this earlier on that you can see that he is now, and he's mentioned he's put it in public knowledge what he wants. He hasn't been given it, and now at the first hurdle, when one player gets taken away, it all goes to shit. Yeah. And that's on Fosun. That's on no one else but them. And so everyone who's well, it was an okay transfer window, and we can't spend money. Well, no, we can, and they need to put their finger in their pocket, their hands in the wallets, and put that money in. They'll get it back in the summer. But the situation we're in now with one winger, with one on loan at Blackburn. I mean, you see a couple of crosses he put over yesterday.
Oh, that one where he sort of did it almost where he sort of stood still.
Yeah, it was Beckham-esque from the left.
It was outrageous. It was so nonchalant. It was like he was at a school. It was a teacher on a school playground. Yeah. It was like, oh, I'll just knock it back to the lads.
Yeah, I mean, everyone mocked the Queen of Console and me for saying about how much I like Ryan Giles. One game in, Tony Mowbray's there saying he's the best player they've had in training all season. One game in, putting 2 great crosses over, what we haven't had at all, from the left as well. So sending him out on loan seems like a stupid thing to do. Again, keeps wiping out on loan, stupid thing to do. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. And if all that brings him down and doesn't let him do his job properly, he's going to be pissed off. And you can't blame him.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with you on the. I get where he's coming from in terms of Nuno. I think Nuno's exit at Wolves and that last season is sort of a bit mutually exclusive and was a culmination of 3 years stuff. Whereas I think you get the feeling Bruno was sort of half promised that we're getting new players in. It just hasn't happened. And, rumours of certain players joining it just was never happening too. Last question we got is from David. How much did the Kiddie defeat affect the players? Did the players have tears in their eyes? That's why we couldn't pass a ball properly. Bit harsh, but I was good.
Yeah.
I mean, don't know about you, Stu. You gotta have a soft spot in your heart for like some teams of non-league teams around here when they're playing a game like that, right?
Well, the first ever game at the new Wembley was Kidderminster against.
Yes, of course.
And I went to that as I've got a little Kidderminster flag back from 2007. So yeah, again, it's one of them places I've never been there.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, I've never been to Agburn once. So there was that hope against hope that the stars would align and we might get a chance to go. But yeah, so yeah, they probably all hate us like Shrewsbury do, but there've never been any. And obviously the manager link and everything else, and the team, the under 23s playing there and whatever. Yeah, it was sad. Yeah, tears in their eyes. Probably did happen.
I was say, did you see the photo post game of the Kidderminster management staff and David Moyes and his great photo? Really, you know what? I think showed what management and football's all about. Epitomised by, did you see the size of the assistant manager's desk? It was when someone pointed out, I cringed. It was about as small a desk as a man could have and epitomise someone who has assistant in their job title. I think it should have said, I don't think he's assistant manager. I think he's assistant to the manager at this point.
I mean, it might as well have just been one of them old Victorian school desks.
It pretty much was, wasn't it? Oh, I thought that was wonderful. But I was going to say, and Bournemouth have won as well, so we'll take that to the bank as well.
Yes.
I mean, we don't. We know. Stu, I know your thoughts on Bournemouth. I know they're not as aggressive as they might have been previously. Now, certain people are no longer at that football club, but still nice. Still nice, isn't it?
No, they are. They were doing the last time I watched them on telly. They were still doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's a shame.
So it's inbred cheating into them, and they can't get out of it.
One day, I hope. Well, that nicely wraps up today's show. Big thanks to everyone who's listened. We will be back to preview the Arsenal game, and I think we'll be doing a joint Arsenal review, Spurs preview, because we've got no time in between games as well. So lots of podcasts coming at you thick and fast in the next week or so. Big thanks to our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media. Go check them out at pixelyetimedia.com. Big thanks to 90 Min for their continued support. And also quick shout out to Forza Football as well. They are a football scores app where you can do some really fun things in terms of, getting live scores and lineups, but also being able to do some predictions as well and reviewing games afterwards. So sort of slightly different than some other football apps out there. I've had a lot of fun playing around with the last sort of week or so, and hopefully when we've got lots of fixtures coming up, there'll be lots of really fun content to kind of keep an eye on there. Go check them out. I'll put a link in the podcast description for anyone who's listening to this audio. For anyone who's on YouTube, you'll see the QR code on your screen. I'll also drop it in the description as well because I am wonderful. Make sure you keep up to date with all things Wolves on our social media, which is at Wolves Fancast on all our social media. And that wraps it up for today. So until next time, it's goodbye from Stu.
Goodbye from me, Trow.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time, gang.